Have you ever wondered what was happening in the world on a random Tuesday, almost 200 years ago? Not the big, sweeping events of a whole year, but the specific, day-to-day stuff. Well, let's travel back in time to January 3rd, 1826, and take a look at what was making news around the globe. First, let's head to France. On this exact day, the nation mourned the loss of a military legend. Louis Gabriel Suchet, one of Napoleon Bonaparte's most brilliant and respected marshals, passed away. Suchet wasn't just any general. He was a master tactician, famed for his successful campaigns in Spain during the Napoleonic Wars. Unlike many of his peers, he was known for being a just and effective administrator of the territories he conquered. After Napoleon's fall, he managed to navigate the tricky political landscape and continued to serve France. His death on January 3rd marked the end of an era for French military history. A final closing chapter on the age of Napoleon. Now, let's cross the Atlantic to the United States. At his peaceful estate, Monticello, a retired former president was busy with his correspondence. On January 3rd, 1826, Thomas Jefferson, then 82 years old, sat down to write several letters. These weren't grand political manifestos. They were glimpses into his daily life. He wrote to his agent, Bernard Peyton, about financial matters and managing his estate. He corresponded with a publisher, Harrison Hall, and an old friend, William Short. These letters show us a different side of a founding father, not as a president, but as a man dealing with finances, intellectual pursuits, and the everyday concerns of life in his final year. It's a quiet, personal snapshot from a monumental figure in American history. Meanwhile, over in Eastern Europe, a dramatic political event was reaching its tragic conclusion. This one's a bit tricky with the calendar. In the Russian Empire, which was still using the Julian calendar, January 3rd marked the final failure of the Chernigov Regiment uprising in Ukraine. This rebellion was part of the larger Decembrist movement, an ambitious but doomed attempt by army officers to bring about liberal reforms in Russia, led by Sergei Muravyev-Apostol. The soldiers of the Chernigov Regiment had risen up, but they were quickly isolated and defeated by forces loyal to the Tsar. Their surrender on this day was a brutal end to their hopes for a new Russia and led to harsh punishments for the leaders. It was a key moment in the crackdown that would define the reign of Tsar Nicholas I. Finally, let's travel all the way to the other side of the world, to the shores of Australia. On January 3rd, 1826, two ships, the Marquis of Hastings and the Sir Godfrey Webster, dropped anchor. These were not passenger liners or cargo ships in the modern sense. They were convict ships, carrying human cargo from Great Britain. On board were men and women sentenced to transportation for crimes that could range from serious offenses to petty theft. Their arrival in New South Wales was a routine event in a massive, decades-long system of forced migration that fundamentally shaped the continent. For the hundreds of people on those ships, January 3rd wasn't a day of political intrigue or quiet retirement. It was the start of a new, incredibly harsh life in a land far from home. So, January 3rd, 1826, was a day of endings and beginnings. The death of a famous marshal in France, a quiet day of letter writing for a former president in America, the crushing of a rebellion in Ukraine, and the arrival of convicts in Australia. It just goes to show that history isn't just about the big headlines. It's a tapestry woven from countless individual stories happening all at once. Thanks for joining me on this trip back in time. If you enjoyed this, Hit that like button and subscribe for more dives into specific moments in history. See you next time.